Welcome back to the Family Section Podcast. Here we go. Now, look, I'm going to pick up where we left off in the last episode, because we had David Jack on last time, and he said something at the beginning when he came on. Greg, he said, "Hey, Greg, because you have a relationship with him." Where he said, "Oh, I'm so happy to see you, and you're doing the stuff you want to do." And I thought, okay, so now I got to ask Greg, what exactly is this guy talking about? Because years ago, apparently you came across David Jack and disclosed to him or opened up to him and said, "Here's what I really want to do with my life. So I want to know what that was."
So it's funny. So Dave and I actually worked together years ago, and we worked. He actually was the president of a sport nutrition company, and so we worked with a lot of professional athletes in the Red Sox and the Patriots, and that was really kind of a dream of mine. But I was doing marketing, and I loved it. At some point, I decided to go into sales, which ended up being a great career for me. But I really always had that marketing itch and wanted to get back to it. And so I've gotten back to that now. The second thing, and we'll talk about this actually in a second, but one of my dreams was always to be an actor. I love entertaining people in general. I just enjoy it. And so, doing the podcast here gives me an opportunity to do that without having to be in Los Angeles. So it's kind of nice.
Yeah, it gives you an outlet, right? Yeah. So, I mean, and again, it doesn't always have to be the focal point of your life, because we're all pulled in a million different directions. So that's what he meant. You wanted to be an actor.
I wanted to be an actor, and I wanted to do marketing, and specifically sports marketing, which I get to do a lot of today. So it's nice. It's fun.
And you get to do all that now. So there you go. So that makes you a happy guy.
Oh, I'm definitely a happy guy, Tony. I'm living my best life, my friend. You and I both are living our best lives, I'd say.
Well, so look, again, like people say this all the time. And this is exactly when people say, "What did you want to do?" I say, this is what I wanted to do.
Always?
And, I'm sorry?
Always, even as a kid, like growing up in Waltham, this is always what you wanted to do?
Even as a kid.
That's amazing.
Yep, absolutely.
That's
great. From the time I was, I don't want to say it, adolescent, I used to simulate like sports commentary, doing games, all that kind. I mean, the real thing is, as a littler kid, I wanted to play, but we all know that one doesn't pan out for 99.999% of us. So, but as I started to get older, I was really interested in sports media. And my initial interest was in television. So if you were to say to me, did it go the way I thought it would? My answer would be no. I mean, there was some, the process was a little different. And radio was never on my radar. And then it sort of developed and became an option along the way. But sports media was it. You grew up in Boston as a sports fan, and then you have an interest in media. The two are just too easy to connect. So
totally agree. This also seems like a good time to mention my partner Maz here actually was just named for our people outside of Boston. He's doing a color commentary for the Red Sox games on Nesson now, which is a big deal. I got to think for a local kid, like that's huge, right?
Yeah. So, my first game's coming up at the time where we're recording this. Today is, we're at the end of March. I haven't done my first game yet, but I'm about to. So my first game is a spring training game. It'll be on the 26th. That's tomorrow. And then I'll do the 27th as well. But my first regular season game won't be until the middle of April. And look, the idea of it, this never even crossed my mind as being an option, given the road. So yeah, I'd be lying if I told you I wasn't excited about it.
It's amazing.
It'll be fun. We'll see how long the Red Sox tolerate me when I start to flap my gums.
Yeah.
But hopefully it'll work out for everybody involved. And, sometimes I have a hard time controlling my emotion when I see something I don't like. But yeah, it's, I give everyone involved a lot of credit, from 98.5 to Nesson to the Red Sox, because it took a lot of people to make it happen. And anyway, I don't want to spend too much time on that.
It's awesome, and congratulations. But I think
thank you, Greg. Yeah. But again, look, when I was a teenager, Greg, and not to start giving you these old stories, I was working in a hardware store. That was my first job. I used to sell paint. And there was a woman years ago who hosted the magazine show that's on Channel 5 here locally called Chronicle.
Sure.
Mary Richardson, who recently passed away and was just a wonderful, wonderful woman. But she was selling her home, or it came in to buy some paint. I struck her up in a conversation like, "Hey, I'm interested in television." And she said, "Let me guess, sports." And I said, "Right." she introduced me to Mike Lynch, who was a longtime anchor at Channel 5, and he was one of my first mentors, and that's how the whole process started. So, never underestimate the importance of having a job as a kid, working in a store or something, and coming across people who have a similar interest as you.
God, Tony, it's so funny you say that because the guest on our last episode, David Jack. So I actually was working at a bank in summers when I was in college and all that. And I actually met his business partner in the bank and talked about marketing and sports marketing. And that's what they did. And so they actually ended up giving me my first job in that real industry as well. So it's the people you meet, and it's honestly the people you talk to. You never know who you're striking up a conversation with. I tell my kids this all the time. Like, don't ignore the person next to you in the elevator, or strike up a conversation because you never know who you're talking to.
No, and I'll tell you, my older one actually is really interested in theater. And I don't know if when we edit this, if people are going to be able to see it, but if you can see the photo over my left shoulder here, Greg, this is my older son doing a theater production a couple of summers ago. And, he sings, he acts. My other one's more interested in sports, but both of them, I say, go for it. Just go for it. And at the end of the day, as parents, one of the things I think we all worry about is, are my kids going to end up in a stable job that pays them well and allows them to do things in life that they want to do? And the reality is that what they want to do is not what you necessarily want them to do. And so I think the real job there is, as much as you want to guide them and prepare them for the reality of the real world, and that's important too, I think sort of chasing your passion is really, really important. And I think that if it's your passion, you'll work at it, you will commit to it, you'll make sacrifices for it. And it might not be exactly what you want. Again, my initial thing was television. I ended up working in the print media, but it just gets you in and around what you love. And again, to me, that's a big, big part of it. Working in a field you love makes all the difference in the world.
Oh man, I totally agree. And honestly, what you just said kind of merges together, right? So one of the things that we do for our kids is we lead them by example. And so to show them that, hey, I am going to work hard and I'm going to strive to do the things that I enjoy in life so that I'm a better dad, I'm a better spouse, I'm a better friend to people around me. I always tell people this. I say, look, life is too short to do a job that you hate, right? And we need to find something in our lives that makes us better as human beings, because if you hate your job, you're going to come home and be a miserable person. As much as you try to filter that out, you're not, because you spend so much time doing it. When you love what you do during the day, you're going to be better in all those other aspects in your life. And it's our kids see this. You hear stories all the time. You talk to people like, oh, my dad busted his ass for years at a job that he hated to put food on the table. If you ask them, usually they say, yeah, my dad would come home at night and kind of kick back with a drink and sit in front of the TV and watch something. We didn't interact with him much. Like, this is what it is. We got to lead our kids by example and show them to always chase their dreams. I'll tell you the other part here, Tony, that I think is important. It's the limitations that we put on our kids and supporting our kids to chase their dreams, right? And I think you said it earlier. It's not always what we dream for them, right? But it's important that they embrace what they dream about. So, quick story on this. I've got my two youngest kids, one's a freshman, one's a sophomore in high school. My sophomore daughter is kind of still trying to figure out what things look like for her. But I was talking to my freshman son about this. And so he's like, I have no idea. And I said, well, what are the things you enjoy about school and what kinds of things do you enjoy in life? And he's like, well, I really like science. And I really like history, and I really like to travel. And quite honestly, he's kind of an introvert, so I think he likes to work by himself. Mm-hmm. So we started to research all this stuff, and what we came up with was that, like, paleontology is perfect for him, right? Yeah. It really encompasses all of those things. Now, as a dad, I'm looking at it going, there's not a lot of steady work for paleontologists in the world. But either way, man, I'm going to support this kid 100% if that's what he wants to do. And maybe that path takes him somewhere else. He'll take a class in college that he says, hey, I actually like the research side of it more, or whatever, right? But so my sophomore daughter overheard this conversation, and you never realize the limitations you put on your kids. So she's like, hey, when I was a kid, I really wanted to be an astronaut. And when you talked with me about this, you said I wasn't good enough at math to be an astronaut. I'm like, I can't believe as a father that I actually said that to one of my kids. But guys, we do this as parents, right? Without even realizing it. And that was probably years ago that I said that. We say these things to our kids that stick with them, and we put limitations on them. Now, the truth is my daughter hated math. And as an astronaut, you kind of got to embrace and enjoy math a little bit.
A lot of calculations there.
Yeah, it's important, right? But again, it's a comment that I probably made in passing at one point that I shouldn't have made. There's a better way to do that. So it's the limitations we put on our kids, and even the little things that you say you gotta think about.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, look, I remember, just quickly to follow up on this point, since we're doing story time, Greg.
Yeah.
You know, when I was growing up, my parents used to say to me, I don't know. That's a tough business. You're not going to make a lot of money if you know, in some places you might have to go work in small markets. And I didn't care. I was like, oh, I want to try it. Like, this is what I want to do. I want to try it. And, you know, it worked. It ended up working out for me. And, you know, and there were times where it was a grind at the beginning, but again, it never felt like work to me. And so I give you my older son as an example, just because, you know, I think a lot of kids don't know what they want to do at a young age. In fact, I would say most kids don't. So, you know, that is entirely 100% normal, which is another thing that I think parents put this pressure on their kids of, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? They don't know yet, particularly boys.
Yeah.
So, but my older one was more like me and had a passion for this at a young age. And he always says, I want to be on Broadway. I want to be on Broadway. And, you know, Mike Flynn, who used to work at the radio station, played for the Baltimore Ravens, still works at the radio station. I shouldn't say, but he was on a little more regularly. Has a son who is a little younger than mine, who is on Broadway and has been on Broadway. Kenny Rosenthal had a daughter who had been on Broadway. Kenny Rosenthal, who covers baseball for Fox Sports, MLB, and has, you know, and The Athletic, and has covered baseball a long time. So it isn't entirely far-fetched, particularly for kids. Their voices, their bodies change. But my son was really passionate about it. And then one day he said, not too long ago, he said to me, do you think I'll make it? And he had this doubt in his voice. And I said, look, you know, he's going to be 18 in August. Like he's not a kid anymore. And I said, well, look, I can't guarantee anything, but here's what I do know. Give it a run. See what happens. Play it out as far as you can play it out. And it might get to the point where you decide you want to be a producer, or you might decide that you want to run a theater, or you might decide that, you know, who knows what. I don't know what it is, but you like being around it, and you'll find where you fit, you know. So I just think that is, again, you know, as parents, we tend to steer them sometimes. So, well, you're not going to make enough money doing that. Well, you're not going to do that. No, you got to go to college and get an education. No, you got to, and I don't believe in that. I don't. And at the end of the day, I want him to be happy doing what he's doing. And when his other life decisions come up, he'll make choices at that time. But to pre-program it at a certain stage, I think is ridiculous.
I love it. I love everything you just said. I think you're dead on. And actually, since we're in story time, I think we just skip forward and bring in our guest, because he's one of the best storytellers that I've ever heard talk. So you want to do that now after our break?
Yeah, I love that idea. Just a quick reminder, you can find the Family Section podcast, certainly at all the usual Sports Hub locations, but jassby.com, jassby.com/podcast. You can find it there. You can also find it at Apple, Google, BPod Studios, which is B as in Beasley, the parent company of 98.5 The Sports Hub. Also on YouTube, I should tell you, the Family Section podcast. And remember, follow, rate, and review. That's all that Greg and I ask. If you check us out, follow, rate, and review, because we are trying to grow the podcast. Our guest, the machine, Jesse Green, will join us next.
All right, we are back on the Family Section with Bot and Maz. We have been talking about inspiration and how we follow our dreams and help coach and encourage our kids to do the same. Our guest today has a lot of experience with that. Our guest is the machine, Jesse Green. He's the star of the worldwide primetime TV series American Chainsaw on National Geographic Channel. He's a world-famous master chainsaw sculptor. He's been featured in pretty much every major press outlet across America. He's got an honorary Doctor of Arts. He's the official chainsaw sculptor of Husqvarna USA, the frontman for Earth's greatest cover band, Fevah Dream, the national Emcee showrunner for the Paul Bunyan Lumberjack Show, motivational speaker, author of a forthcoming book series, Chainsaws, Cheeseburgers, and Rock and Roll. I can also tell you he once spent an entire summer living on a beach in Hawaii. He's driven all over the country in a van, played in over 100 cover bands, was born with sunglasses on, wears them all the time, and he inspires kids to passionately chase their dreams. Welcome, Jesse.
Well, thank you very much. What an intro. And can I just start off by hijacking and saying, can I say, Maz, congratulations, brother. Can I say? Because I mean, I'm on the call with I'm on with royalty, the new color voice of Nesson's Boston Red Sox coverage. The only other way to make that team was to have been on the Red Sox. So talk about a dream coming true. Am I right?
That's what we talked about in segment 1. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm getting a lot of love for this today. So thank you, Jesse. Appreciate it. We really would prefer to talk about you today.
Well, but there's a point to it, because this took you how many years to accomplish?
Oh gosh, I mean, my whole life. If you know, and again, I don't know that this singularly was any sort of like specific objective, but I'm 54 years old, so you can do the math from there.
Yeah, man, and that's kind of like one of the main underlying things that I'm always trying to convey to kids at these shows that I do is that everything takes time.
Right.
The universe works on its own time. You don't get to. I'm sure if somebody said, "Hey, Maz, you want to be the color commentator for Nesson's for the Boston Red Sox at 22," you would have been like, "Yeah." Who knew it would have taken until now, but it did. It's done. It's happening, and that's all that matters.
Oh, no question. Yeah, look, and again, you're right. And Greg, I'm sure you get this too. Kids want to talk to you all the time about, your field and how you got into it. And one of the things I always tell every one of them is be patient. Be patient. It's hard to be patient, but it takes a while. You think there's this grand plan, Jesse, like I'm going to do this and this and this. And it just doesn't work that way. You take the first good opportunity that you think fits for you, and then you see where it takes you from there.
Right. That's the saying. If you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans.
That's right.
Right. And Greg.
Yeah, buddy.
You're Greg.
Heck yeah.
Greg is also one of the most impressive people I've met in the last few years. I've had the pleasure to get to know a little bit better. Actually, it's become a tradition now that I come and insert myself into his family vacations once a year.
That's right.
And just kind of be a hanger on for a night, camp in my van in his driveway, and then just kind of do all the damage I can do and then leave town.
We love it though. So Jesse, I wanted to ask you, what did you want to be as a kid when you were growing up? What was it like? Hey, I really want to do this.
Well, a lot of different things. I've always wanted to be an artist. I mean, that was just the underlying thing. Somehow I wanted to be something. And then but I was a cartoonist for the whole first 18, 19 years of life. Cartoons. Everything was all about cartoons. I mean, if you weren't a cartoon, I didn't want to look, And I went to college as an illustration major, but something funny happened like right around my start of my junior year of college. I just lost all my patience to draw 2D anymore. I didn't want to sit down at a desk indoors trying to meet a deadline to draw a comic. I wanted to make big, colorful things. I think that inspiration was always there. It's just that I hadn't really totally tapped into it. I didn't have a means to tap into it until I was at that point in college. I may have wanted to dabble in big things back in middle school and high school, and I did like a little bit. I made things out of cardboard. I've got a great story about making a 12-foot tall dreidel that leaned against our ceiling beam for a school play. My mother had said, make this, if you have time. I was home one day. I was sick, but I may not necessarily have been totally sick. You know what I mean? Maybe my mother knew that. Maybe she didn't. She said, go make if you have time today, we're doing this school play, make a big dreidel. What she meant was like a 4x4, two-dimensional thing. And I made her a 12-foot leaning against with all the cardboard pallets that my father used to bring home from Seal Test in Framingham, where he worked for 30 years. So they made Breyer's ice cream.
The ice cream.
All the ice cream pallets, cardboard. I took pieces of that and made this 12-foot tall dreidel leaning against the thing. So that when my mother walked in, she did like a red fox, like, oh my God, what is that? And so, but I couldn't just keep doing that stuff. I mean, they had to they did dismantle that to get it out the door, and then it took up half the stage on the school play. The school wasn't happy with it, but I wanted to do stuff that was like permanent wood. Had always I'd seen people do chainsaw sculpture as a kid somewhere on the side of the road. Just kind of was in my head, but it wasn't until I had the opportunity to have the studio space to experiment with it, and I'd never used a chainsaw before, ever. Before I found a log on the side of the road and grabbed it, went and bought my first chainsaw, and just kind of like went for it. And it was love at first cut. And so ever since then, I've just wanted to be a chainsaw sculptor. Until I then kind of, in my opinion, conquered that mountain and then turned my attention on all these other different things that I want to do. I mean, now my new favorite thing is the motivational speaking thing. I love doing that even more because I can actually like make a difference to somebody, to maybe, to many somebodies at a time. Whereas I couldn't engage like that doing chainsaw sculpture shows. I mean, I can make things that people love, but I can't impart something from my experiences that's going to make their lives better. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally makes. Greg, go ahead.
Oh, so I was just going to say, before we get, one of the things that when you were talking, it popped into my head. So you always wanted to be an illustrator. You're like, hey, this is what I want to do. So tell me about going to your parents and saying, hey, I want to go to college for illustration. Like, were they super supportive? Were they like, Jesse, what are you doing? You're never going to make any money. Like, how did that go? And how did they deal with that?
That actually wasn't that hard of a conversation because if I wasn't able to major in art, I wouldn't have gotten into college. And they were happy that they were just happy that I was going to college. But if I let that be the only part of this, the only part of the answer to this question, I'd be doing my parents a disservice. They supported my artistic wants and ideas and everything in every way possible from day one. Awesome. So they were always behind the idea of me doing art. Always.
Love it. So I want to walk you through the story again a little bit more. So you're a junior in college and you say, you know what? I just don't want to sit down at that drafting table anymore. Like I'm good. So where do you go from there? Because you've just spent 2.5 years thinking you were going to get a degree in illustration. So
well, fortunately, it's not like switching from master's to being a nurse or something like that. It's not that dramatic of a shift to switch from illustration to sculpture. You know what I mean? So I was lucky in that respect. I know people who have faced harder transfers.
But you, as I recall, you did some other stuff before you really started to realize your dream, right? Didn't you like drive a truck and do some things like that? So tell us, so how does that go? I imagine you get into chainsaws and you're like, okay, but I actually have to make a living, right? So you start doing other stuff to make a living. Is that how that came about?
Well, you major in sculpture, how much job opportunity do you think there is there?
Uh-huh.
There isn't. It was a big joke amongst my friends and people who I was close to, like, what are you going to do with a sculpture degree? And I didn't know, and therefore I wandered out into the real world and stumbled around and got stuck and had to fall on my face over and over again and try to figure it out and really have to hit my own personal, what I felt was rock bottom. Not a rock bottom where it's like, okay, I've ruined my life, but a rock bottom where it's like I've gone the complete wrong direction and I'm wasting all of my potential, whatever I might have had, everything that my parents ever put into me. My wife, now I've got a wife, and she had the faith in me to, think that I was going to do something more than this. And she's not saying that, but I'm saying it, And so I finally just went, I can't take it anymore. And it ended up being a phone call. I called her from the road one day. I was driving a tractor trailer, and I just broke down. I was like, I can't take the same. I'm wasting my life. And I haven't been any of the places I wanted to go. And I know that I could do it if I just tried. I haven't had a chance to really actually try. And to her credit, to her eternal credit, she said, I want you to be happy. You're not happy. I believe in you. Just quit. And I did that night. And that was now, we're going on I think this May is my 15th anniversary of my company.
Yep.
And you read it in the beginning. That's all the stuff that's resulted from that leap. So therefore, I say you gotta go for your dreams, but you also gotta have patience because nothing happens overnight.
Okay, so Jesse, how old were you when that happened?
I was 30 when I woke up and said, I'm 30. This is what I want to be.
Yeah, and look, that's a threshold too. That's a big birthday, right? Like that's sort of like you're an adult now.
Yeah, and then some, and starting to feel what it was, what my dad must have felt like all those overtime hours for all those years. Started to really look forward to retirement, which was still 35 years away. So that was but then it took me, I considered the next real step. I mean, I started getting somewhere with it real fast because I was hungry, starving. I was going to make it no matter what. There was, we named the company Get There because there was no other choice but to get there. But it still took me then another 5-6 years to make it a done deal for Greg's brother, Kevin Harris, who you guys had on the other day.
Yep.
One of my best friends, to sign on with him as my executive producer. And we went and got the National Geographic show. And it took that long. And that I felt every second of that.
So Thursday, the reason I asked is 30 is an age where, people start to self-reflect a little, like, geez, I'm 30. Like, where's this all going? So I don't think that's unusual that it happened at that stage. But what I find interesting about your story, and I'm sorry to jump in, Greg, is, the message that, or the point that, look, you can start out with one thing and then it can change. Yeah. Like, not everybody just dials into one thing and then does it for 40, 50 years. In fact, very few people do it that way anymore. And because you said at the beginning that, the motivational speaking now has become a passion for you. And so it can lead to all these other different things that you never even considered at a certain age. But now you do consider them because you're like, you know what, I want to do this. This would be fun. I really enjoyed that. And to me, there's a real lesson in that from your story.
Would any of us have considered that we could have been doing this, what we're doing right now today, even 2 years ago? That we would be all doing this from our own separate places and beaming together and being able to put together some sort of positive, think tank thing of stuff. That's crazy. I mean, and that's all something good happening from something bad, but now will be part of our new normal and our future going forward. That we don't necessarily need, with every passing year, everything changes and everybody has to change with it. Everybody has to pivot with it or get left behind. And how you respond to that is going to be, what happens to you in the future. But you also don't have control of everything, and you certainly don't have control over timing. And it's all a lot of it's we happen to meet.
So Jesse, just kind of bring it full circle too. So now you have a daughter, obviously. So how do you think this kind of shaped her views, and how do you try to support her now to chase whatever it is that she wants to do in life?
Well, since this is the Jasper 98.5, the Sports Hub family section podcast, I'm going to take this. How's that? Was that good?
Yeah,
I get TV experience now. I'm going to take this opportunity to, if I could, to do something I don't usually do. I don't usually brag about my daughter too much because I feel like she's perfect. And I hate to say it. I don't say it to friends. I don't say it to people because I don't want it to sound like. But and I say that part of that is because I hear stories of other people who are very impressive people whose kids couldn't care less about what they do. They're bored in tears with it. And she is so engaged in every aspect of everything that I do. She was born a month after we finished filming American Chainsaw. So that has been her whole life, to know me as this, not what I was before. And the talking and the stuff, and I go around to schools and I have slides of her that I show as part of the show, and she knows that. And kids, I tell her about how kids engage with the pictures of her more than most things. She loves it. She loves it all. And it's made her want to be an artist. It's made her want to do motivational stuff. It's motivational speaking. It's made her want to put positive vibes out there in the world. And my wife, who's accidentally made a reputation for herself as being somebody who, the mom who will put on fun costumes at holidays and dance around at the bus stop. And I stick it on Facebook and people seem to love it.
It's awesome.
And you should check that out, Matt, sometime. Yeah. Check out all on my Facebook page, all the videos of my wife dancing around the bus stop. And so
I'll definitely look it up.
She's that kind of person. So that combination of things has yielded a person that's better than us, certainly better than me, that my daughter is so willing to put herself out there and automatically be free to be an artist and free to have fun and show people love and make friends very easily and be involved and do all the stuff that I wish I could have been able to do as a kid, because I struggled with everything more than she does.
I love it. So look, Jesse, you're a long line of guests who I think we could talk to for hours, but we are up against the clock here. What sort of things? So you do this awesome road show to schools. I've actually had the opportunity to listen to one of them, and I'm looking forward to the next one I go to, where you basically do a real motivational slideshow. So Jesse, guys, and I'll sum it up for him real quick, but he basically goes through, it's a picture storytelling, where he just kind of kicks through his whole story, starting from way before to right up till now, and the steps that had to take along the way. So if it's not hasn't been in your high school yet, ask your school about it. But Jesse, what other plugs can we give you here?
Well, Chainsaws, Cheeseburgers, and Rock and Roll. Chainsaws, Cheeseburgers, and Rock and Roll.com. Thank you very much, Greg. And you can check me out on social media, Facebook, Instagram, but not just high school, any age from 2 to 105, both live and virtual. When I pivoted to this, when I embrace this virtual world, I've now done I built this sound booth here in the office, which takes up a good portion of my office, but it's worth it. And I've been doing this virtually to schools all over the place. So at every age level. So that's Chainsaws, Cheeseburgers, and Rock and Roll is the thing that everybody should see.
That is awesome.
What are some of the best tips you could give? Sorry, what are some of the best tips you could give to not only our parents listening, but also kind of for their kids? What are some of the best things you can tell them in terms of chasing their dreams and all that fun stuff, inspiration?
Well, I was listening to you guys do a previous episode, and I was listening to you guys talk about parents being too intense during sports, and and being overbearing, and just kind of, and that I think is the trick of it. Pull back, know when to. We're all guilty. I'm definitely guilty of being like just do this kind of a. Everybody does that. We had a moment with my daughter was basketball. We had a teaching coaching moment where I reached that kind of peak, but you have to control yourself as the adult theoretically and pull back, and that goes for all the interests, because they're going to dabble in a lot of different things before they get to the final destination, and the final destination might not come until age. How old, Maz? Now that you've got the dream gig,
54.
You never know. All that matters is the end.
No, that's right. And look, again, it's hard for parents, right? I'm a big believer in that too, Jesse. I am. You just got to let them go and they'll figure it out. And it's really about what strikes a chord with them, not with what strikes a chord with you. It's their life. You're just there to sort of nudge them along when they need to be nudged, or redirect a little bit. Someone said this to me, was one of our neighbors. They are who they are. They want to do what they can do. The best you can do is just give them a little nudge every now and then if you feel like it's starting to go astray, just to try to rein it in. But they're going to want to do what they want to do. And look, your story's fascinating. I mean, I like for it to unfold the way it unfolded. Honestly, I think it's a great thing for parents to hear, Greg, because you can't go in with this blueprint and think it's all going to go according to plan. It doesn't work that way.
Right.
No, I totally agree.
Everything gets frustrating.
And there's so much more to this story, guys. So certainly kind of check it out, at Jesse's website and some other places. The story has a lot more dips and turns and high points than we had a chance to cover today. But check it out.
Well, I think I was the first person in JASB 98.5, the Sports Hub Family Section podcast history, to have such technical problems getting in here. So maybe I could be the first person to have a part 2, huh?
There you go. Yeah.
No, that's true. Yeah. No, I in fact, you know what? We will have you back at some point. But before we let you go, let me just ask you quickly. Are you a sports fan?
Yeah, I mean, not like you, but yeah.
Favorite team?
Duh. I mean, are you talking about across all sports, or just, because I'll give you the Boston answer for each individual sport.
No. I would say for, of the Boston teams, which is your favorite team?
Well, I think I'll probably have to go with the Sox, because I just did the thing with the Sox a couple years ago. I made with ESPN, I cut a worldwide commercial series with ESPN, made the Red Sox-Yankees Ultimate Rivalry Throne. And we took that to Fenway and did a whole bunch of shooting stuff there. And now it's a fixture at ESPN. So I have to say the Red Sox are a part of my heart.
Okay. And we're going to have to get you out to a game or something at some point. Greg,
please. We'll tell Euclid and Middlebrooks to move over, and I'll come sit right between you
guys. Yeah, Tony, we'll do a game up for sure. And yeah, I totally forgot about the throne thing. That's right. It was a whole intro to one of those Red Sox Yankees games, Maz, and it showed him cutting. It had the dramatic music behind it. It shows him cutting the normal ESPN voiceovers. It was actually a pretty cool video. So.
All right, well, Jesse, listen, you've been a blast to have here, man. Seriously, been great. Brother. So we look forward to talking to you again. And just a reminder that obviously the Family Section podcast is sponsored by JASB, the family finance app for kids, with the debit card for kids with no fees. Very important. And you can find the Family Section podcast on JASB.com, and JASB's with S's, JASSBY.com. You can also find it at 98.5thesportshub.com, on our app, bpodstudios.com. B is in Beasley, who is our parent company, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast. Yes, we're even on YouTube. And Greg and I ask, and Jesse today asks as well, follow, rate, and review is something that we ask you to do if you find the podcast interesting to you. So thanks everyone for listening. We'll catch you next time.
Bye,
Thanks,
guys.